Now let's jump into the rest of the TFcon third-party product preview panel that was going to be shown at Orlando, Florida in 2020. I'm going to go through some of my favorites. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to go through some of my favorites that are worth pointing out and talk about some information that kind of was not brought up within the panel itself with Ryan. Little details here and there to be noticed. We'll start with Fans Hobby MB-15 Naval Commander, aka Armada Optimus Prime. Now, this is a really awesome one. It's one that I'm very excited about, and it's great because this is a design that, while Takara has been really teasing at some kind of official Optimus Prime Armada Micron version, we just haven't seen much information on it, and it seems that mold has been lagging in release, and who knows, it might not even get released ultimately in the end. We don't know. As of this recording, we have no information on that official release, but with this Naval Commander third-party one, we have a very clear indication of what is planned for the future. Obviously, people are wondering, Naval Commander. I think it's a play on the Armada Naval kind of thing. This is a really, really cool release. We have not had this design done in any shape or form updated in 18 years. And when you're talking, kids that maybe were raised on Transformers Armada, 18 years later, they're in that 25-year-old demographic. And now they're nostalgic for their, and I use air quotes here, Generation 1, their G1, if you will, Optimus Prime. And this is a great looking figure. I can't stress enough just how much is going on here, and I'll break into the little details of it. Number one, let's look at just the small robot mode. We'll start there. Everything is super articulated. Everything looks incredible. Very bulky, much like his, animation counterpart or his original toy. There is one thing that was not shown here, which was, is there a matrix in the chest? And I'm not really expecting a removable matrix, although that would be really cool, but is there a matrix in the chest? The flap on the chest does look like it goes down, but that's also heavily part of the transformation for the front grille of the truck mode. But I would not be surprised if the matrix is there. It's just, there's nothing stopping it from being there. It would be silly to not have that sculpted detail and have a cool little matrix of leadership in the chest. It's not shown in these images, but I'm pretty sure it's there. And if it's not, Fans Hobby, hey, if you're listening, make sure that matrix is there. Very important. Very, very important. He's not going to have, obviously, a moving mouth gimmick, probably, like the original Armada toy, but that's not too much of a big deal, because what I always found quite ironic was they included that moving mouth gimmick with the Armada Optimus Prime, and we saw that previously with the original MP01 Masterpiece Optimus Prime. But the funny thing is that was all an homage to the original G1 Prime and how the animation was done for the old cartoon. In the Armada/Micron Densetsu Legend cartoon, every time Convoy or Optimus Prime talked, his mouth didn't move. His mouth plate, didn't move. So it wasn't too much of a big deal if this is absent. If anything, by it not having a moving gimmick, it's even more show accurate. Aside from that, it just looks great. They managed to maintain his big, Convoy cannon, his two little weapons too, like his two little wrist gun things. Looking at it carefully, his wrist guns, and this is something that's very, again, looking back to, let's say the old toy and seeing what's absent and what's not absent. The original old toy, those wrist double blasters were translucent and removable, and then could be combined together to make a weapon that could be held as a separate gun. And because it was a standard 3mm peg for a lot of certain figures, it could be held by other figures too. Kind of a line-wide thing that started with Armada, mostly because of how the Minicons interacted with everybody also, stuff like the Star Saber sword and everything. So it looks like that might be absent too. But again, it was something that wasn't really used in the show. He didn't at any point kind of take his side blasters, combine them, and make a separate gun for somebody. So not really necessary for show accuracy, but a little bit of a nod to the old toy if it was maintained. But it doesn't look like that's the case here. But again, no big absence really. Now, let's get to the alt mode, like the big truck mode. So the smokestacks, like I mentioned before, they could be taken off and placed on other places of the truck mode if you want it on the side, if you want it on the back to make it a little more G1 inspired instead of Armada inspired. But again, because just like the old toy, it has those universal pegs, you could kind of put that thing everywhere. So not really a big deal, but it's still pretty cool. He looks great. He looks great in the alt mode. There's so much going on here. There's so much detail. I mean, I like that it has like this like pop-up back thing for storage for both mini-cons or in the current day and age, our MicroMasters that we're buying, our 2-packs from Siege and Earthrise. Looks really good. Looks really, really good. Not much else I could really say about the alt mode for now. We'll get to, like, when we get to the base mode stuff, the alt mode kind of also has a little extra hook on that too. Now he comes with also Sparkplug. Now Sparkplug, aka as he was called in Micron Prime, that's not confusing at all. Sparkplug, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's just the early resin prototypes. I'm not feeling him on the details. Very bland, boring kind of looking chest for the robot mode because of the front hood of the car mode. I think maybe it's just because it's not painted in right now. I mean, you could clearly see, like, when you compare it to the original Sparkplug, aka Prime from Armada, there's all the details of that old Lamborghini kind of design and the painted in windows and stuff. This is clearly obviously absent on a gray resin prototype. So I'm going to be kind of reserved on my opinions right now of the quote mini bot, as they call it here, or his Micron or his Minicon. We have to see more details, but from what they show us, though, looks like it's really articulated. They even do kind of the superhero landing pose, so very articulated for a MicroMaster / Minicon, something we're not really used to right now from that price point, from the Hasbro / Takara side of things. And in relation to how these guys work, they still work like traditional Minicons, especially this one here. There's two kinds of peg hold systems that exist with this figure. Minicons work in what we call the female system, which is you have the little peg in the center and then the peg gets filled in to create the unlocking gimmick, where MicroMasters that we have currently, they use the 3mm peg or a male peg system. So what's interesting about this, they call it their docking system here, which is it's designed to fit both systems, which is really cool. And so you could have both your MicroMasters right now, which they use the traditional 3mm pegs that could attach, or alternatively, you could use either old Minicons from back in 2002, 2003 and onward, which use the female system and the Minicon port system that they have, or you could even use the mini robot that's included, which uses that traditional Minicon female system. Or, however, transform and combine, power link, or as they called it in the Japanese version, evolution. So this is really cool that they give you both those options. If you don't have old Minicons, you could use your MicroMasters, which is a nice little nod to the old design. Let's get to that base mode. I really, really like this base mode. Obviously, they couldn't, keep the old toy gimmick of this auto transform infrared, weird system that they did, which I'll tell you one thing, extremely revolutionary for its time and has never been revisited since, but very interesting. But I really like this base mode even more. I like how it has like a tower tier system to it. I like how the legs, they kind of become these garage rollout ramp stations, which is really cool for storage of the figures. I like everything that's going on here. It just looks really good. It looks really, really good. And I'm quite shocked how they kind of improved on an old base concept from the Hasbro one. It looks very nice. And it won't have the GPS of the old Armada toy, also in the arms of the robot mode and, of course, the ears of the super mode. Now, on top of that, when we go back to the full truck alt mode here, there actually is a semi-base mode with those ones too. They kind of have like these ramps that you could have and have little repair stations and stuff. So there's a lot of different play patterns that are going on with it. And if you have a whole bunch of MicroMasters or Minicons, you're going to have a fun old time. And finally, let's talk about the Super Mode, or Super Optimus Prime, or Super Convoy. And it looks amazing. There's not much that could really be said. It looks incredible. It actually gets rid of the lot of the kibble that the original toy had. It has a lot of articulation, which is something the original toy had zero of. You don't have to worry about GPS from the original toy because of the gold that was used in very specific areas of that Super Robot mode. And it just looks spectacular. There still is the Minicon plug points that are needed if you want to have like Sparkplug, residing on his shoulder for his, Super Convoy attack. You have, again, pop-out missiles on the sides, missile decks, which, again, are probably Minicon activated, and it looks really cool. And judging by the way that this figure still traditionally combines to his trailer, I pretty much almost guarantee that there's probably going to be a Jetfire in the future, or probably even not so much a Jetfire, but also a Jetfire and an Overload, aka Ultra Magnus, as he was called in Japan. So this looks great. This looks very, very good. I'm very excited about this one. It's something that, like I said, third party for me is all about doing stuff that Takara and Hasbro would not do. And while we've been teased an Armada Optimus Prime, just the small one, for the longest time at Wonder Festivals and everything, we just have not seen anything that really gives us, confidence. And then this is shown to us, and this gives us a lot of confidence. And the fact that it's dual compatible with the old style of Minicons and the new style of Micromasters with the way they peg, this gives us a lot of play patterns. It gives a lot of people different entry points of enjoyment, and there's not much more I could really say except that I'm really excited about it, and I hope that you guys are too. I'll be touching up on more of the other third-party stuff from the panel later this week.